Sarah from your Franklin branch, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite science things to do in the summer, which is bubbles. So when we talk about bubbles, we're going to talk about two science words. One of them is molecule, and the other one is surface tension. So molecules are the smallest, tiniest parts of something like water. So the tiniest part of water is a molecule of water, and they're so small you can't see them. But they love to cling together, and they try to stick together as much as they can, and that is what we call surface tension. Now, certain things can break surface tension. Sometimes soap can do it, but for bubbles, soap actually helps create the bubble and helps the water maintain its surface tension because the water doesn't evaporate as quickly with the soap. So we're going to make 1 cup of bubble solution right now, and ideally you would let this sit for 24 hours before using it, but I know that's really hard to do, so you can wait for like an hour or 2, 3 or 4, like make it in the morning and then play with it in the afternoon. And I have solution that's been sitting for 24 hours, but for right now we're going to show you how to make the best, big, strong, excellent, surfacey, tensiony bubble solution. Okay, so our first ingredient we're going to add is cornstarch, and for a cup of bubble solution it's going to be 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. Now, measuring is something that is a really good thing to start practicing. You can start practicing making stuff like this, and you can start practicing with your grown-up cooking. Our next ingredient is 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And before we do anything else, we're gonna mix that up. Grown-ups will be familiar that in cooking, it says to mix dry ingredients together. So here we are mixing our dry ingredients together. And now we're ready for some wet ingredients. We need a tablespoon and a teaspoon of this blue dishwashing liquid that for some reason is usually the best at making homemade bubbles. Now I want you to notice, see how there's like a little dome over my measuring spoon, my tablespoon? That is sometimes a good way to make sure you're getting a precise amount of liquid ingredient. You want it to be flat or just slightly more full. And now we've got that teaspoon of the blue. And now we need another 1/2 teaspoon, but this time it's glycerin. Now if your grown-up is like, I don't have glycerin, ask if you have corn syrup at home, because corn syrup can take the place of glycerin in this recipe. So there we go. Now we have all of the wet ingredients except one thing. We're missing one of our wet ingredients. Who can tell me what is missing from this bubble solution? Because right now it kind of looks like we're about to make slime, right? That's right, it's water. So I said we were making 1 cup of bubble solution, and I will measure out 1 cup of distilled water. You do not have to use distilled water. I've just been told that it makes the best bubbles because there are the fewest impurities in the distilled water. But I have made lots of incredible bubble solution with non-distilled tap water. And here we go. We have created 1 cup of the strongest, coolest bubble solution that I have been able to find on the internet. So we're gonna let this sit and get all nice and bonded while we do a short experiment. While we wait for our new bubble solution to set up, we're gonna conduct an experiment to see which parts of those ingredients work the best. And then later we can see how they work together to make the biggest, greatest bubbles. So I have this handy chart, very simple, and our solutions labeled A, B, and C. Now, the two things that each one of these solutions have in common are water and soap, because you can't make bubbles without both of those things. But solution A has one of our extra ingredients, solution B has another one of our extra ingredients, and solution C has the third extra ingredient. And I have forgotten which one. So this is a blind test where we're not sure which one is which, and we'll check after we view our results. On our chart, I just have solution A, B, and C, and we're going to rate them for size, strength, and buoyancy. And buoyancy usually means if things float in water. But today we're going to see how well the bubbles float in the air. So if they sink really fast, that's not very buoyant, but if they float up to the ceiling, that's high buoyancy. So let's start with bubble solution A. And mix it up a little. I've made these wands out of pipe cleaners, but if you have bubble wands at home, I would just say to make sure they are clean of any other bubble solution before doing your experiment. Okay. Ooh, it's not a good start. Bubble solution A. Not making a great bubble so far. Let's get down closer. Well, it was kind of big, but it didn't last very long. So does that mean it's strong? I don't think so. Let's see. Okay. That last bubble was about the size of an apple. So we'll say apple and smaller. The strength was low because they popped almost immediately. And the buoyancy, did they float or did they? Very low. Because they went right to the table. Are we ready to evaluate bubble solution B? What is happening with this one? Ooh, that was better, wasn't it? I could get them all the way up to my mouth. I think those were bigger and a little stronger. Not really strong, they didn't last great, but bigger than an apple, bigger than A. The strength was, let's say, medium. And what about the buoyancy? Did they float or did they sink really fast? Yeah, they sank pretty fast. So low buoyancy for that also. I hope solution C floats a little better. That was almost as weak as solution A. That was the biggest bubble though. Did you see that? Okay, so that was the biggest bubble. It was pretty strong because I whipped the wand through it a couple times. So high strength, biggest. It didn't flow very well either, did it? So I'm going to say they all have low buoyancy. Let's find out which of our special ingredients was in each solution. So solution A had our cornstarch. So cornstarch doesn't add much to the strength of the bubble, and it kind of makes sense that it would be heavier because cornstarch is a solid and it's just in the liquid. And didn't make very big bubbles, so we'll see when we get all of these ingredients together how the cornstarch works together with the other extra ingredients to make amazing big bubbles. So the solution B was the baking powder. It's not very strong either. I guess that's why we need solution C, which is the glycerin. And that clearly makes the strongest bubbles. Yeah, it even bounces back into the wand. You can't see that, but that was pretty cool. So now we know the differences between how our bubble ingredients work individually. And next, we're gonna go outside and see how they all work together, hopefully to make super big bubbles. Before we go outside, I'm gonna show you how to make your very own homemade giant bubble wands. And it's very simple. It's just a length of yarn or string and a plastic straw. So you take the plastic straw and cut it in two, so you can have two handles. So after you cut the handles, you thread your string through the straws. And if you do not have straws, I think you can actually just use a circle of string, because once your hands are covered in the soapy solution, your hands will not break the surface tension of the bubble. Now, it might be a little trickier to open up, but I will demonstrate all three of these handy dandy bubble wands when we go outside. It is nice though to hide your knot in one of the straw handles. So that's also a reason to use a straw. All right, we can go outside. Okay, so the best weather for bubbles is a little bit overcast, so not as sunny as today, and high humidity, both of which are not today, but we can still have a good time. And we found some shade, and that'll help keep the bubbles from evaporating too quickly. This is my first string without any straw handles, and we're gonna slowly let the air fill the bubble. And one of the great things about this is the more you play with it, the easier it gets, the better you get at making bubbles, and you can walk around making these long, snaky bubbles. So I'm going to try our second bubble wand. Oh, there we go. That are some big bubbles. Alright, I'm going to try the other one. Strength isn't really happening. I think that must have to do with the humidity not being so high today. All right. Thank you for joining me today with Bubble Science. Remember the words molecule, surface tension, and I did slip in another one, evaporation. So ask your grown-up to do more on those topics. There's a lot of fun things on the internet, of course, and have fun!